Let's make seitan in an Instant Pot. This is possibly the easiest seitan recipe I have ever made. I don't say that lightly because we have a lot of really easy seitan recipes on this channel.
Speaking of, if you don't have an Instant Pot, don't worry, just check out those other recipes, link in the description below, that don't use an Instant Pot.
Okay, to start off with, you're gonna need vital wheat gluten. And yes, this is seitan. It's made with vital wheat gluten. By the way, some people say seitan. That's probably more correct, but I learned it seitan, so that's how I say it, and that's how I'm always gonna say it. So please, nobody be offended. But yes, vital wheat gluten is what you need because that is the gluten that forms the structure for the entire thing. There are ways to make seitan-like products without vital wheat gluten, but they're not actually seitan. So this is seitan, and we're using vital wheat gluten.
We do have another recipe if you can't get vital wheat gluten that uses flour. It's called the wash the flour method, and that will be linked in the description below as well.
And I may actually make a wash the flour method for an Instant Pot recipe too, because I actually really like the wash the flour method. But anyway, let's get started on this. What do I have in this bowl?
You have 1 cup of vital wheat gluten.
And what am I gonna add to that?
Well, Brian,
Are we really gonna be like this today?
you're gonna add 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast.
Okay.
Nutritional yeast is really important because it brings flavor and more protein to this recipe.
It also acts as a texturizer in this particular recipe. When you mix it with the vital wheat gluten, it actually changes the texture just slightly. You'll see other recipes where people put beans and things like that in. Some are doing it because they think it makes it a complete protein. It sort of does, but who eats things just in isolation? You're eating so many proteins that doesn't really matter anymore. But really, the reason why they're adding beans and things like that is to change the texture because it can make a sort of a gummy seitan into something a little more soft. However, the way this is cooked and the way this comes out, you don't need it.
Next up, speaking of flavor, is the Wonder Twins. A teaspoon each of garlic powder and onion powder. A teaspoon of thyme, because you can never have too much thyme.
Now, you could use like a chicken broth consomme or something like that if you want to. I'm trying to do this recipe without those things. Thyme is a really great way to simulate a chickeny type seasoning without actually having to add a chickeny type seasoning.
Also, this particular recipe is perfect for whatever sauce you want to add to it. Think of it as more of a neutral base to add more flavor to.
This looks like salt.
That is salt, a half teaspoon.
Now, something else about this recipe. It's very forgiving, okay? The spices and herbs that you want to add, you can change that up. Things to be careful of, though, are anything that's liquid, because that can alter the texture and how well it holds together. And what's this?
That is white wine vinegar, a whole tablespoon.
If you really want to use red wine vinegar, you totally can. If you really want to use apple cider vinegar, you also can. It's going to change the flavor just slightly. Yep, I'm just dumping it all in. Nope, I didn't mix anything up yet. Probably should have. Because usually I do. But you know, a funny thing happens when you go to record something, you screw everything up. Just automatically, things that you do normally go wrong. It's all good.
Funny because it's true.
Yep. And then I have...
You have you have 3/4 of water there, a cup, mind you. But as you can see, Brian's going to add a little at a time because sometimes you don't need that much.
Yep. Generally speaking, use about half the amount of water that you have vital wheat gluten when you're making seitan. But that's generally speaking because the seitan doesn't know that. So it might actually come out different. Like I just used half a cup and obviously we're not there. So I'm going to put in some more. You want this to be moldable and pliable and moist, but not sopping wet. If it's too dry, you're not going to get a great seitan out of it. If it's too wet, it's just going to kind of flop around and really not cook all that nice. I don't even care that it's got a little bit of like, there's a little bit more nutritional yeast in this spot or that spot. Because if you think about it, the thing that this is almost sort of trying to simulate is not really homogeneous, you might say. So,
in other words, most good food has little pockets of texture and flavor throughout rather than just a big homogeneous blah. No homogeneous blahs here.
That's right. And now I'm literally just using it. So I didn't even use all the water. There's still like probably a tablespoon left in there. Some days I do end up using it all, some days I don't. It also depends if I put more herbs or spices in. Sometimes they soak up a little bit more. If I put in more nutritional yeast, because, you know, I'll be honest, I usually just eyeball it. So a half teaspoon more or a teaspoon more might use a tablespoon or more water. But I'm just scraping the sides with the dough itself to get it all in there because, you know, waste not, want not, right? You paid for all these ingredients. All right, looks like clean that bowl pretty good. Now we put it out onto our cutting board. And here's where I'm going to break this into 2 pieces because I'm going to make 2 cutlets, if you will, 2 portions out of this. One for me, one for her. This recipe makes 2, by the way. And I always make one a little bit smaller because she doesn't eat as much as I do. And what I'm doing is just kneading it out a little bit, and I'm going to give it that stretch. And you'll see like a skin form of the gluten itself. That is perfect. That's exactly the way we want it to be. So I just give it a quick knead, and then I start patting it out on the board, trying to just make it a little bit more flat. Something like that. And they do expand a little bit during the cook, but not that much during using this method. So just something about like that, maybe 1/2 inch thick at most, seems to work well. And then I'll do the same for the other one. It's kind of like working with pizza dough at this point. You're just really stretching it out and making it go thinner in the middle. You don't really want to rim though, like a crust. You don't want that. I mean, if you do, go for it, but not really my thing. If you get an edge that's like that, that's torn, just kind of fold it over itself and squeeze it together really hard. The gluten will actually reform back together. Really get to play with your food when you make seitan, which may be good or bad. I don't really like having my hands all dirty and sticky and squishy. So for me, this is less than pleasant, but it's a necessary evil of cooking. Now, you'll notice as it sits, it tends to come back together again. It tightens up. That's just a thing. That's the way gluten works. You want it to relax a little bit, and then you can flatten it out some more. And you just kind of go back and forth until you get them to about where you want them to be. Okay, at this point, we're going to introduce the Instant Pot.
Ta-da! Now, this is just the liner, obviously, of our Instant Pot, because putting the whole thing on this table is obnoxious.
Yeah, I agree. And in the bottom, we're going to put that. You can put any kind of metal separator that you want. This actually came with our other Instant Pot, and I just really like it. Okay, so you want to have a glass bowl that's large enough to hold both of those cutlets and fits inside your Instant Pot. And make sure it's oven safe. That way you know it won't crack with the heat. But that's also why we separate it from the bottom. See, gotta be careful with stuff like that. But to keep these from sticking to each other, let's use some parchment paper. Now I have here about that much. Fold it in half. We're going to use the snowflake method to make 2 circles. So I have it folded in half. I'm going to fold that in half that way. And a heavy crease. Use your fingernail. Really get in there. It's important. I'm joking. It's not that important. Then fold it in half this way again. So I made it quarters. Right? So it was in half, and now I made quarters. Now I'm making it into 1/8. Now I'm going to make it into 1/16. You ready? Get out your scissors. Hold it about close to halfway to your edge. Measure it. See, I'm holding it there. Make a cut. Now watch this. This is not the magic of television here. This is real. 2 circles.
Ta-da!
Hey, if you're not having fun at what you're doing, you should be doing something else. Plop one on top. Plop this guy on top of that. Plop that on there. Super simple. And wipe up your cutting board. You know, it gets dirty. Be clean as you're cooking. Then, I'm going to take some more water. Just plain old water is fine. We're going to pour that in. Go ahead. And I just want to go like up to the bottom of that little spacer that I put in. So it's like a cup, maybe 2 cups of water. Our smaller Instant Pot only needs like a cup. This is the larger one. I usually put like 2 cups in there. You can use broth if you really want to, but I don't think it's going to do much. When I tried it with broth, it didn't really make any difference. Then take this, set it inside there. Put that in your Instant Pot under pressure for 20 minutes.
We'll see you then.
All right, so I got out my linesman's gloves. One important thing is that when it's done, I don't actually let it sit and naturally release pressure. Yeah, I hit the button, get it out of there. It might have sat for a couple of minutes, but not long. And then take the bowl out. I can probably lose the gloves.
Now, sometimes some of the moisture from the steaming process collects in the bottom of the bowl. Don't worry about that. That's normal.
Really hot.
But you don't want it.
Yeah, you don't necessarily want that stuff.
You don't want soggy seitan.
Right. All right, that was very unceremonially clumsy. Time for the glove again. Just gonna put this back in here.
All right, can I move this?
Yes, you can move that out of the way. All right, so now we have our finished seitan. Ideally, in a perfect world, you want to put these in the fridge and let it sit for a few hours. Overnight is better. It'll improve the texture. However, we don't live in a perfect world, so Derek and I are going to taste it right now just for you. So let's see, which piece do we want to cut from?
We're going to eat these later, so maybe a little bit from the big one.
Okay. Okay, the first thing you will notice is that the texture is actually quite fine. So this is going to be a more, have a good chew to it. It's going to be more like chicken. It's going to be very much like a chicken breast. As a matter of fact. There you go, babe. It's nice and bouncy, got a good spring to it. It smells good. It smells kind of like chicken.
Yeah.
What I remember chicken smelling.
This would be perfect for like a chicken parmesan
Yep.
type of situation.
Now, I have taken these and then done like a coating with breading and breadcrumbs and all that kind of thing, and then put it in the air fryer for a few minutes and crisp them up, and that works beautifully.
Yep.
It's easiest if these are cold when you do that, though, because then that way it, yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's got a great texture.
It's got a great flavor.
Tastes really good, too, yeah. Sometimes really, really simple is all you need. Never have I seen a recipe, though, where you can have a full completed seitan in 30 minutes.
Yeah, the first time he tried this in the Instant Pot, we're like, this is going to be crap.
I don't think it's going to work.
This isn't going to work. And then we're both just kind of like,
That was amazing.
we got to do a video on this.
Now, to finish these, once you put it in the fridge and let it sit for a little while and come to temperature, back down from temperature, you can throw them in the air fryer to reheat them, get a little crispy on the outside. We have a grill pan that I like to use, and it puts, grill marks on it, makes it look like grilled food. And there's all sorts of ways you can finish them that way. You can also bread them and all that sort of stuff. But honestly, like tonight, we're just going to make a sauce and put that over it. Tonight, probably going to be barbecue sauce. I don't have a problem with that.
Because these are so easy to make, you can make these in mass.
Stack a bunch of them.
Use fresh parchment paper in between them, and then freeze them.
Yes.
And that way you have instant seitan ready for you anytime during the day. Pre-made, ready to go. Just add sauce and enjoy.
Now, that's one way to preserve them. The other way is you can make a bunch of them and you can store them in the fridge for probably about a week. Beyond that, I wouldn't want to store them much longer than that. But the freezing method is by far the easiest. Make a whole bunch of them, freeze them up, and then you got seitan cutlets for whenever you need. But make this stuff. It's super easy. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on The Bistro.